This is a number 3 of week 9, which is a precipitation reaction. And this is all the ions are being dissolved, and these are all aqueous solutions. And once these compounds are being dissolved, they will generate the cations and anions. When cations and anions are both dissolved, there will be potassium cation and barium cations and sulfate anion, chlorine anions, and looking for and trying to find if they can switch the partner to see if they can find an insoluble product. So by looking at here, you need to have a understanding that this SO4, they form solid and they precipitate. For here, the lead, when they form the lead sulfide, they form the precipitate. Okay, so PBS, solid. And also copper, lead, SO4, lead sulfate. They are forming the solid and they form the precipitate. So this is a prior knowledge about the precipitation when things are being have insoluble products, and then they're all going to be settled down at the bottom. So write ionic reactions and net ionic reaction. The net ionic reaction is probably the most common one here. So let me start with a net ionic reaction. So to predict if the precipitation occurs, and it's both yes, yes, and yes, because I can see that the compound in purple will have is for the insoluble product. Okay, so the net ionic reaction first, that will be a K2SO4 aqueous, barium chloride aqueous. Right? And so if you look at that, it's the reaction is actually misleadingly simple, but it's they form barium SO4 solid, which is a precipitate, and we just simply switch the partner. So 2 times KCl aqueous. So this will be a sort of the reaction, and as a consequences, this will be the reaction going on like that. But the complete reaction shown up here. So let me start with a complete reaction. It's a potassium plus. There are 2 of them. SO4 2 minus aqueous, barium 2 plus aqueous, 2 times chlorine minus aqueous, and then they are forming. Most noticeable product is they form BaSO4 solid as a precipitate, and then the other things, 2 potassium plus, 2 chlorine minus aqueous. So this is a complete reaction by recognizing when bariums meeting with sulfate, they form this insoluble precipitate as shown up here. And if you look at the others, this is what is called the spectator ions, and they just hang around and do nothing before and after. It's just shown up as they are. So therefore, the number 2, which is a net ionic reaction, is not showing the spectator ions. So barium 2 plus aqueous, SO4 2 minus aqueous is barium SO4 solid. So that will be a the net ionic. Complete ionic is what is shown up above here. Okay, so this is a pretty much the very similar deal. So let me rewrite this equation once more. The number B, PB, Cl, O4, 2, aqueous, dissolve in water, calcium sulfate, aqueous. And then they're going to precipitate lead sulfate, which is a solid. And then they are going to form calcium 2 plus ClO4 2 in aqueous. Okay, so the complete reaction is Pb is forming 2 plus 2 times aqueous. It's a lot of writing. Okay, 2 times ClO4 minus aqueous, calcium 2 plus aqueous, sulfur 2 minus aqueous. They form Pb S solid as a precipitate product, and then they will form calcium 2 plus aqueous plus 2 times ClO4 minus aqueous. Okay, so that's the whole equation. And then if you start to get rid of the spectator ions, you see the spectator ion does ClO4 minus there, and chlorine, the calcium 2 plus with spectator ions. So therefore the net reaction here is Pb2 plus aqueous S2 minus aqueous. Then they meet, they form this insoluble product, precipitate. So that's a net ionic reaction. Okay, so what my third one? That means copper sulfate aqueous with lead dichloride, which is an aqueous. And they form, I guess, precipitate first, Pb SO4 solid, and then what's left over is a copper Cl2 aqueous. Okay, so that will be a net reaction for this. And so, not reaction, that will be a description of the reaction. But ionic-wise, if I show all the complete ions involved, copper SO4 is in reality is 2 plus aqueous ions, and SO4 2 minus aqueous ions, Pb 2 plus aqueous ion, 2 times chlorine minus aqueous ion is forming Pb SO4 solid, and copper 2 plus aqueous ion, 2 times chlorine minus aqueous ion. So that is a whole everything, the complete ionic reaction. And then I'm looking for something that redundant on both sides. Chlorine, I see here. Copper, I see there. So therefore, my net reaction is, and it's customary for writing the cation first. Okay, so Pb2 plus SO4 2 minus aqueous is being PbSO4 solid, and that's a precipitate. And so that's a net ionic reaction and versus complete. So this is a complete, and this is a net ionic reaction. Okay, thank you for your attention, and this is understanding the which one can form when cation and anions meet. When they meet together, they form an insoluble product, and which is a solid, and they usually have a higher density, so they precipitate down onto the bottom of this solution container.